Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education University, and I'm your host, Tim Bogatz. All right, welcome to November. Welcome, everyone, to the November Mailbag. It is the first episode of the month, so we are here to answer all of your questions. Amanda Heyn is back this month, joining me. Amanda, how are you?
I'm so good. I really missed last month, but thanks to Janet for filling in. My mom also missed me being on the podcast, although Stacey really enjoyed listening to Janet too. So
that's good. Your mom is a loyal listener. Wait, does she listen to other episodes or does she just listen when you show up? Okay, I assumed as much. I don't know why she would listen to me if she's not an art teacher, but we appreciate her listening. So yeah, shout out. I guess we should say when this episode airs, it is election day. And so I want to tell everybody, please go vote. I don't care how you vote, but please go vote. My wife is a social studies teacher, and it's very important for her that everyone is civically engaged. And so message from her to everyone, please go vote. Amanda, did you vote already?
Yeah, of course. I voted early as coincides with my personality. Brought my kids. I think it's really cool for your kids to go with if you have kiddos, not like your own personal children. Obviously, don't bring students to the polls. And they had really cute future voter stickers. And
nice. Yeah.
At my polling place. So the kids really liked it.
That's good.
It feels good to be, like you said, civically engaged. Did you vote?
Yeah, I voted by mail. Nebraska's been doing that for a while. And so my wife and I both vote by mail early so we can get our ballots and just kind of research each issue that we don't know enough about. Because, when you go to the polls, if you don't remember exactly how you're supposed to vote, like it's tough to look things up. You feel like you're taking too long and it's very stressful for me. And so
I like to make myself like a mental cheat sheet. In Wisconsin, they have a thing where you can, I don't know if this is everywhere, but it's like you can look up what's on your ballot. Like you put in your address, it'll show you your ballot ahead of time.
Yeah, you can do your prep work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoy just doing it at my kitchen table. So I always vote by mail. And like I said, you can track your ballot, make sure it's arrived, make sure it's counted. And yeah, I appreciate all of that. So I was happy to do that. Beyond elections, like we've moved past Halloween. It's November. What else is going on for you?
I have a fall garden update.
Everyone was so ready to be done with gardens. Like, how are we still talking about gardens in November?
Nobody can see this, but I brought all the plants in my new fall garden.
Oh
all
my
the
gosh.
little things. Maybe they can do like a ASMR. Like, can you hear this?
As you flip through the tags? Yeah,
my little tags. Because
sounds terrible, but tell us about them.
I hired my friend to redo a garden because turns out if you plant a tree over a garden, then your garden turns from a sun garden into a shade garden over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So we had like this garden that was planted before we moved in. This is getting really long. Anyway, there's a lot of different hostas in there because I was like, please give me a plant I don't need to do anything to and it will just grow. And I just really like the names. Like there's some different green tones or hues, I guess we would say. And my favorite one is called Guacamole.
All right.
And it has like darker green around the edges and then like an avocado.
Okay. I like it.
So, and I also really like Jack Frost because it's kind of shiny. Like the leaves almost look, I don't know, kind of fuzzy or like they have a sheen. And I'm really into it.
So you have like a very specific aesthetic for this new garden.
Oh, she made me like a ranking system because I was like, look, I don't know anything about how to take care of plants, but I do know what I like and what I don't like. And I'm like really picky aesthetically. And so she made like essentially a Google quiz for me and I had to like rank all of the pictures of all of the plants and it was very fun. And then the last step is we're going to do a river of tulips like in the middle of this garden.
Okay.
I'm so excited.
I like this. So are we expecting in the spring it's going to be looking great, like you plant now and it's coming in for the spring?
Like, that's the hope. I
Okay.
have been watering it on the schedule she told me to. I'm being very diligent.
I was going to say, this all sounds very elaborate.
No, but it's not. It's the easy, like, I was like, push the easy button. Like, I can't be pruning things.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I understand.
So, anyway, you're welcome to everybody who plans in for garden talk. And I'm sorry to all the people who do not.
All right. Can I share one quick story? Because this was kind of a fun one for me. I was at the grocery store last week and just go up the aisle, and I just hear off the side, I hear this voice go, "Art, art, art." And I was like, what? And I look over, and it is a former student of mine. She had just a lot of like intellectual and developmental disabilities, but she remembered me from like 2008, 2009, and like she remembered me as her art teacher. And so I was like, Katie. And so went over and talked to her, and she loves like checking out people's thumbnails. And so like every day when she came into art, she would have to like inspect my thumbnail. And so I went over and just kind of gave her my thumb, and she looked at it, and her mom got like the biggest smile on her face that I had remembered that. And so she checked out. So I talked to Katie for a while, talked to Mom for a while. But it really just like warmed my heart that like this kid remembered me from, I mean, she's got to be in her 30s now. And yeah, she remembered and shouted art at me when she saw me. And so I love that.
I would love if people shouted art at me and remembered me like that.
Absolutely. So that was a feel good moment for me. Yeah. So I appreciated that. That was very cool.
Awesome.
And I guess the other thing that we should talk about before we open up the mailbag are the show notes that we always talk about, because you all should see the look on Amanda's face right now. Amanda, can you tell us why we need to talk about show notes?
Yeah, because I realized I don't know what the show notes are. Like every time we do a mailbag, I personally say at least 3 times, we'll put it in the show notes. And then I realized I don't know where to find the show notes. Are the show notes on our website? Are the show notes, do you click a button? Are the show notes in the podcast player? And this is extra embarrassing because I like to consider myself like a podcast connoisseur. I listen.
You are a podcast listener. You definitely are.
So I just thought, well, maybe either everyone thinks I'm an idiot, which is fine, or B, maybe other people don't know where the show notes are, and maybe I could just be a little vulnerable, and maybe you could just tell me where the show notes are, and maybe that would just help other people find the resources.
Yeah. I'm going to go with B, and we appreciate your vulnerability. You can find the show notes on our website if you ever go and listen via the website. If you open your podcasts app, okay, you should be able, when Art Ed Radio pops up, it'll come up with a list of episodes underneath there. You probably see the logo, and then you'll see the list of episodes. When you click on the episode, it'll give you the description. It's 1 paragraph long, talking about what is there, what the episode is about. And then below that are all of the show notes, all of the resources, all of the links. And so you may have to scroll just a bit, but it'll say resources and links. And then for these episodes, we have 6 or 8 or 10 resources and links usually. And you can find everything right there in the app.
Wow, that's so amazing. What a time we live in. Thank you for explaining that.
What a time to be alive. All right. And then can I add one more thing? We should probably do this before we're, 9 or 10 minutes into the episode. But I have been made aware that we have a lot of new listeners to these podcast episodes, or the mailbag episodes. Yeah. A lot of new listeners to the podcast. So I got a couple messages saying these episodes are great. Who are you? And so I thought we should introduce ourselves. So I am Tim Bogatz. I've hosted this podcast for 8 years now, something like that, maybe 9 years, 450 episodes worth. And yeah, I was an elementary teacher, art teacher for a couple of years. I was a secondary art teacher for a lot of years. And then I've been working full time for the Art of Ed for the past 8 years. So yeah, this is kind of what we do. We're coming at you every week with podcast episodes. So Amanda, can you give all of our new listeners a quick introduction?
Yes, I am the Director of Community Engagement at AOEU. I have been also working here for an eternity. I have done a lot of different roles here. I wrote for the magazine. I edited it. I oversaw Pro Learning, our PD platform. I'm heavily involved in the Now conference and now our new community platform. So that's really exciting. We hope you all join us over there. We'll put a link in the show notes.
I was just going to say, I will link in the show notes to the community.
About, how to do that. I also am a former art teacher. I taught elementary art and loved it. What else? I love confetti. I'm a Scorpio. What else do you want to know?
You love gardens. And yeah, I think that's good. So anyway, welcome to all of our new listeners. It's great to meet you. I hope you enjoy these episodes. And we have a lot of emails and questions to get to. So Amanda, can you officially get us started?
Yes, let's go ahead and open up the mailbag.
All right. Our first question comes from Tracy. And Tracy says, I'm on bed rest for the next 2 months and I need as many suggestions as possible. I would love to know your favorite art-related movies or shows on Netflix or any other platform so I can add them to my list. What art shows have you enjoyed watching? All right, Amanda, I feel like this question could not be any more in your wheelhouse. So I would love for you to answer this first.
Yeah. How much time do you have? I do want to answer it first. First of all, we're very sorry to hear that you're on bed rest. I can't imagine any situation where that's a good thing. So we are sending you all the positive vibes. I do have recommendations broken down by platform for you. I love TV. Okay, so my first recs come from Netflix. So if you're a Netflix user, the first is the Abstract, the Art of Design series. It follows a bunch of different designers, and there's an episode on Olafur Eliasson, who does these incredible light installations. I really love him, and that episode is called The Design of Art. So that's good. The whole series is good, but if you're looking like super, super art, like fine art specific, I would suggest that as a place to start. Okay, the next one I'm going to butcher, but it is, I believe it's Viren Tomic, The Spider-Man of Paris. If you just look up The Spider-Man of Paris, you should get to it. But this interviews an art thief about a robbery he carried out at the Paris Museum of Modern Art. So like he legitimately did an art heist and he is being interviewed for this documentary. And the reason he's called the Spider-Man of Paris is because he literally scales buildings. And so there's also all of this first person footage of like GoPro of him scaling the buildings and like doing like parkour essentially like across the rooftops. And it also interviews some of the individuals he stole from. So like it mainly tracks this one heist he did, but he also was like a cat burglar, like going into people's apartments and like taking art off their walls while they were home. Like it's so fascinating.
Okay. Did he like GoPro his crimes? Did he record his crimes?
I don't think so. I think it's like after the fact that this is like adding to the ambiance of the documentary. So it's not like first person art crime, but
which I would totally watch, by the way.
Sure.
If you did. But no, this whole thing sounds fascinating. I like it.
Yeah. And it's kind of like keeps you on the edge of your seat because is he going to fall off the roof? But obviously, spoiler alert, he does not. Okay. And then there's, if you haven't watched the Bob Ross documentary, it's called Happy Accidents, Betrayal, and Greed.
Right. It starts off so happy. Like you bring it up on the Netflix queue and you're like, Bob Ross. And the first word you see is happy. And then all of a sudden, like betrayal and greed.
Right. It's if you love Bob Ross, you should watch it. It's really interesting about like how how his estate sort of has unfolded over the years. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Okay. Should I just keep going?
Yes, I would love to know what else you got.
All right. Amazon Prime, if you can sometimes get to PBS through this, I think this also might just straight up be on YouTube, but there's an old documentary called Between the Folds, which is about origami, which I know you're saying like, that sounds so boring. But I promise it's so good. It's about the intersection of origami and other disciplines. So they talk about sort of like the future of medicine and origami, and like there is like a fine artist who does more sculptural work. And it's just, my own children are obsessed with origami. Like we've been to the National Origami Convention in New York City. So this is required viewing in our home, but it's a really fun watch, and it's like just under an hour, I think. So it's an easy one. And then on Hulu, I have a couple of education related shows. So these are not art shows, but if you're not watching Abbott Elementary, what are you doing?
Great.
Just like about an elementary school, kind of in the style of The Office with like the confessionals and stuff. Really fun. The other one I hesitate recommending because it is like, take the M warning seriously. Okay, like do not watch this with kids around. Like the M warning is there for multiple reasons. But it is called The English Teacher. And again, I just think it's like a very realistic take on the state of education in general. And I find myself laughing out loud at a lot of it. But again, like if you don't like swearing, if you don't like other mature themes, like not for you.
Okay, is this a funny show though? I don't know anything about it. Okay. You made it sound like it was filled with like murder and like sex. And, no.
Well, yeah, I mean like it's just
there's a little bit of murder.
There's no murder. There's a lot going on. So there's a lot going on, but I'm enjoying it.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Thank you. I will run through mine really quickly. Mine are almost all from Netflix. I love This Is a Robbery, about the Gardner Museum heist. I believe there are 4 episodes, a great documentary there. And then that can probably send you down a whole different rabbit hole of books and podcasts and other media about the Gardner Museum heist. Fascinating. I think I've consumed it all. Like it's very good. There is also a documentary about art forgery called Made You Look.
That one's good.
And yeah, this was, it caused quite the stir a couple of years ago when it came out. I think we did like an emergency podcast all about it. So yeah, that's a very good one if you have not seen that. There's a new one I have not watched yet, but a couple of friends have recommended it to me, called The Andy Warhol Diaries. So I don't know anything about it, but I've heard it's good. So might be worth checking out. I also love Blown Away. It's I don't know how to describe it. A competition show about glass blowing. And I don't know how many seasons they have now, but there are multiple seasons. So if you're down for a binge watch, then you can definitely do that. Also, if I can plug another podcast, back after season 1, I interviewed Momo Schaefer, one of the contestants from Blown Away. That was a super fun interview. So you can check that out too if you're looking for extras. And then there's a documentary about Kai Guo Jiang called Skyladder. And I actually talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about sci-fi artists, but he does all sorts of like great explosions and drawing with gunpowder and fireworks, and great documentary about all of his stuff. So definitely would recommend that. I would also say just go to the Art21 website. If you're not familiar with Art21, they do dives into contemporary artists and contemporary work. There's maybe hundreds of episodes and other things to explore, resources. Super easy to just kind of get lost in everything that's there, and it can probably spark some inspiration for your classroom too. I don't know if that's of interest to you right now, but there's definitely a lot there. And then finally, I don't know if you're looking for books or not, but I'm reading a book right now called Get the Picture by Bianca Bosker, and she's basically an investigative journalist, but she just decided like, hey, I want to incorporate myself into the art world. I want to break into the art world. If you think of like, super fancy, very elitist, like art shows and galleries and whatever. And she decides, like, I want to be a part of this world and I want to see how this goes. And so she dives in as like a studio assistant, as like a museum guard, as an art buyer, and like takes on all of these roles to kind of figure out everything that's happening in the art world. And it's a fascinating concept. She's a great writer. It's a very, very good book. I'm about halfway through right now, so I don't know how it's going to end, but so far it's great, and I would highly recommend that. So,
that's fun.
Yeah, it's a good one. I'll link to it in the show notes.
Okay, great. I'll go.
All right. Also, if anybody's listening and you want to add anything to the recommendations list, please just shoot us an email. Maybe we can hit a few more things next month if we get some more recommendations. All right, our next question is from Amy. And Amy says, I have parent-teacher conferences coming up soon. They always go fine for me, but I'm wondering what your best response is to parents always saying, I could never draw a stick figure. I feel like we've all heard this 1 million times. So, Amanda, what is your best response to that?
I think I might just say, like, good news. We never draw stick figures in art.
Right.
I don't know. When people tell me this, I just like gently remind them that like all things art takes practice, right?
Yes.
And I kind of talk about how it's a common misconception that people are just born being good at art. Yes, people have natural inclinations for things, but you don't just like exist and know how to do everything. You know, I think I just try to apply this logic to like any other discipline. You know what I mean? Like music. Like I could never play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Like I bet you could. I bet
if you worked at it, I bet you could figure it out.
I also like to talk about with parents that art is more than drawing. Like, yes, drawing is an essential foundational skill that I do believe impacts other disciplines, but there are many, many skilled ceramicists and sculptors and fiber artists that don't rely on quote unquote go to realistic drawing to make their work. So I try, you know, like it maybe depends on if it's the third time I've heard it or like the 30th time I've heard it that evening. But I think it can open up a fun and interesting conversation.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it gives you the opportunity to just kind of talk about what you want to talk about. Because, you know, if you think about like the best athletes or coaches or like politicians, you know, when you ask them a question, like they don't really answer that question. They just talk about whatever they want to talk about, like get their talking points out. And so that's kind of how I think about it, especially at conferences. And so, like you said, just use that opportunity kind of to either talk about the program or just like hype up the kid that's there and talk about how well they're doing. And so, yeah, whenever I hear that, I usually give a fake laugh, pretend like I've never heard that before, like, oh, so funny. But then, yeah, just kind of use that opportunity, like you said, to talk about how art is way more than drawing. You know, we do drawing, yes, and I'm very good at teaching drawing. So, you know, your kid will get better at that. But more importantly, we are becoming more creative. We are doing problem solving and critical thinking, and just talk about all of the other opportunities that are there in art class and how, you know, there are so many more things that we can do. And then just talk about, you know, hey, your kid is actually pretty good at this. The more they work, the better they'll get. And they're going to do all of these really cool things, and just talk about all of the opportunities ahead and, you know, so many more things to do that go beyond just drawing there. And so, you know, I think a lot of parents say that because they don't know about art. They don't know what else to say. And so, you know, just use that as an opportunity to, in a very friendly way, just kind of educate them and tell them a little bit more about what you're teaching and what their kids will have the opportunity to do.
I think that's a really good point, actually. What they're expressing is like admiration for what you do, right? Yes. Like I could never do that. I can't believe you can do that. And so I think assuming good intentions and then opening up whatever conversation you want to is a really good solution.
Yeah, excellent point. Assume good intentions, no matter how many times you hear that.
Right.
But yeah, just keep it on a positive note. And I think that's the best approach to dealing with that.
Yeah.
All right. Our next question comes from Sebastian in Maryland. And Sebastian says, my kids seem to be really good at destroying art supplies. Think broken rulers and snap pencils and crushed crayons and pastels. We're doing bookwork right now until I figure this out. I'm going to start with just pencil drawing and we'll work our way back to more supplies. Is that the best approach? How do you deal with destructive students?
Well, that's a very positive way to frame it. My kids to be really good at destroying art supplies. And also, that sounds really hard. And I'm sorry you're dealing with that. It can be really disheartening, especially because we know our budgets are not often
Yes.
what we want them to be. And so if you have kids purposely breaking the supplies, that is not okay on many levels. I do think it's worthwhile thinking about what that behavior is trying to tell you. You know, like behavior is a form of communication. So like, what are they saying to you by destroying the supplies? It was interesting. This made me think of something that happened when I was student teaching. I was working in a really, really like rough school with kids who didn't have a lot of opportunities outside of the classroom for enriching activities. And, you know, the first time that my cooperating teacher got out paint with these kiddos, they were in kindergarten, and probably half the class within 2 minutes had smeared the paint all over their hands and arms. And we were like, what is happening? Right? Like, what is happening? Like, and in this case, they weren't trying to be destructive, but they were being extremely messy, which was a problem. And we realized, like, okay, like these kids have never finger painted, right? Like these kids,
they have no idea what the texture or the feel of this is.
Right. And so like, okay, like take a step back. Like what tactile experiences can we give them in order to like get that out of their system and let them experiment and explore? And then we teach them, okay, like this kind of paint is you use a brush. To bathe in. So I wonder if more novel supplies might captivate them, or things that aren't as easy to destroy, or things that are meant to be squeezed or stretched or manipulated, right? So like, I don't know what level you are working with. Like this is obviously would be different if you're talking about lower elementary versus middle versus high school. But like if it's elementary, pattern blocks, right? Like you can't really destroy those, but you can make some really cool, interesting designs with them, or model magic or weaving. For some reason, weaving always got my squirreliest kids to be quiet. And like, that seems counterintuitive, but that worked for me. I don't know. Okay. I also wonder about like dry erase markers and personal dry erase boards. Like, so they're drawing and then they can erase, like, I don't know. I'm just thinking about like what could captivate them. And also like all of this is with the caveat that it is important to teach them to respect materials. I like how you're thinking about bringing it back to basics and working your way up from there. I do think if they are breaking the pencils every time, like, yes, they don't get to use pencils. I think you're on the right track, but I'm just trying to say, like, think a little bit more outside of the box as to like, what might captivate them enough to engage them in the right way. And then the last thing I thought about is I think it's a good idea to sort of like rein it in and then sort of open up supplies as the students can prove they're ready. But like, what does that look like? And could it be a gamification challenge, right? Like, how do they unlock different materials? Can you connect it with video games? Like, what parameters can you put in place? And like, when they meet this challenge, like, then they get to use these supplies. So I don't know. Like the last thing I have is your mileage may vary, but like with some kids who are being destructive, it sometimes works to appeal to the greater good and sometimes it doesn't and they don't care. But sometimes kids don't realize, like, if I break this pencil, that means like 6 other kids don't get to use a pencil that day, right? Like these aren't just your supplies. Like you're not just here and then in a bubble you leave. Like the whole school uses these. And so you're actually destroying them for everybody. So I don't know. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't.
Well, I think we're at the point where we'll try whatever. I want to speak for Sebastian, but if we're down to just pencils at this point, I'm sure he's open to a lot of different ideas. So Sebastian asked, is this the right approach to go back to pencils, then slowly open things back up? And I would say, yes, that is the right approach. So short answer, yeah, you're on the right track. I was just going to talk about when I first started, erasers were a huge problem for me. We had the erasers because kids just love to rip them in half and they love to have them, just disappear. And they would get crumbled, they would get torn, they would get cut up, like just they were Yes. Oh, yeah. Stabbing so many pencils in it, like it's such disaster. And so it took me a long time to figure out like how to actually make that work for my classroom. And I tried a lot of things. I put together a bunch of like kneaded erasers. So I had like a ball that I just carried around. I would break off a little bit for a kid when they needed it. Then they had to give it back when they were done. Like that actually worked okay.
Yeah.
I cut erasers in half or in thirds so they could not do that themselves. And so they have a smaller one to work with. Or if I knew kids were destroying it, I would pick up the pieces. And then the next time they asked for an eraser, I would just give them a tiny piece. And then when they complain, like, oh, it's the same one you had last time. What happened to it? And so that helped a little bit. Having like individual sign outs can work. Like that was not great for me because I didn't love keeping track of that. But like a sign out sheet is good. Or if kids have to get up and walk across the room to pick up supplies, they're less likely to use them a lot. Like it really cuts down on a lot of waste. And kind of along with the individual signouts, a lot of times if you have everything together at a table and just like one person in charge, whether that's like a bucket of supplies and just have one person to monitor those supplies. And then when things don't come back or things get destroyed, you can at least narrow down who's doing it. And then I would just say if you can make clear consequences for destroying materials, a lot of times that can head off some things too. Like if you know who's doing it and you can figure that out through supply monitors or through sign out sheets or whatever else. And I mean, consequences can be anything. Like first time's a warning, second time you call home or talk to whoever's at home, third time you lose those privileges. Make sure you have your processes in order and kids know what the consequences are for destroying things, and hopefully taking it slow as you get back in will help you with the problem you're trying to solve here. All right. Go ahead.
Quick idea. Well, if you're at the secondary level, I know a lot of teachers do art kits, and this is dependent on your budget if you can do this or not. But essentially, kids get 2 paintbrushes, a pencil, a Sharpie, an eraser, and like those are theirs for the entire quarter or semester, however long you have them. And once they run out, like, or if they choose to destroy their own supplies, then like, sorry, you're out of luck. So kind of teaching them ownership in that way. But again, that's very dependent on a lot of factors, but just wanted to throw it in there.
No, I like that. I usually did that with my advanced courses. Like I usually did not trust my intro kids to like hang on to their own stuff. But yeah, like I said, Sebastian, you know your classes better than anybody. You'll know what'll work for them. So. All right, Amanda, we're to our final question. Or no, we are not. We have 2. Oh my goodness.
Questions. I know.
Thank you. Okay. This comes from Kelsey Whaley in Shelbyville, Tennessee. Kelsey says, hi, I'm a former high school art teacher and recently stepped over into the K-8 world to be with my own children at their school. Congratulations, Kelsey. That's a dream come true for a lot of people. I never thought the little kids would be for me, but I'm absolutely loving it. The hardest part about my day is keeping each class on the schedule with so many conflicts each week or getting pulled. I see each class for 45 minutes one time a week. So if we miss Monday, for instance, that whole day of classes gets behind the others. How do I keep them together? What do I do with the other ones while the ones behind catch up? And at what point do you just move on? I'm loving your podcast weekly. Thank you so much. All right. Well, Kelsey, thank you for the kind words about the podcast. My advice would be to talk to classroom teachers and see if there are things that they can finish in their classroom. Now, this obviously depends on if you think those teachers would be open to it. You'll know best their personality, the curriculum they have to teach, whether they're going to allow interruption. Like very much it just depends on those classroom teachers. I think everybody who teaches elementary knows exactly what I'm talking about. Yep. But yeah, you'll know best if that'll work. But if you think it would, let them finish things up in their classroom. But I think it's a good goal to keep classes aligned. I think that is a lot less prep work for you.
Yes.
Just keeps things a lot more simple for you if you can keep your classes at the same place in the same order. If some classes are getting ahead, I would just look for one-day lessons to keep them engaged for a day, or early finisher activities, whatever else you can do to just kind of keep them engaged, keep them making art for a day or so while the other classes catch up. one more time, plug the show notes. You can search for One Day Lessons on the AOEU site. We'll put a few of our favorites in the show notes. You will find a lot there. And even if you just pull 2, 3, 4 of your favorite, that can get you through a lot as you try and get those classes aligned. Just give them an extra day to work while the other classes catch up. Find something fun for them to do that's still creative, still worthwhile. And I think that's probably your best solution to try and keep them aligned. So, Amanda, you have more elementary experience than I do. So what would you say in this situation?
Yeah, I agree with trying to keep everybody together. It's just so much easier. If I were you, or probably like by my second or third year of teaching, I was able to do this, but look ahead at the calendar for like the next 2 to 3 months and figure out how many times you're going to see each class in the time frame, right? And then you can adjust the lessons accordingly. So if you see one class 8 times and another 7 times and another 6 times, you can handle that in a few ways. I think the easiest in a case like that would be to plan something cohesive for the 6 times that you're going to see all the classes, and then tack on some extension days for the other times or other classes that you will see. So that might mean extending the lesson. It might mean giving more of a free choice day. Or I often used an extra class period to try to experiment with something that I'm not sure if I want to add to the curriculum, or I'm not sure is a good idea to do with just that grade level.
A test run of something?
Yeah, basically. Like use it as a test run. I think another thing to do with extra class periods is to find a way to use up those materials you don't have enough of to use with an entire grade level. Like people are always giving you like 27 plain wooden spool or, they're like, I thought of you. I was at a garage sale and like, thank you, but I can't really do a whole lot with this. So developing some fun projects to kind of use up those materials is another way. Another option is just to build in an automatic sort of catch-up day once every couple of months. So you already know that you have an automatically built-in buffer for classes who might need to finish things, or even kids who might need to just finish things.
Yeah.
And then, okay, I have 2 more ideas really quick.
These are good. We like all these ideas. Take your time.
Okay. So you can also have a set of 5 sort of pre-planned extra lessons that could work for any grade level. So think no to low prep, drawing, centers, read a book, do a project, whatever. And then you can just pull those out as needed. And maybe it's as simple as you're reading a book and then you have a drawing prompt and you're using computer paper and markers, right? And so it's just something you can pull out at a moment's notice. And the final thing I would say is don't worry about cutting a project short or modifying it for a class. So maybe one class doesn't get through all the steps, right? Or maybe you make a certain class's paper smaller so it takes less time. There's a lot of ways that you can experiment and be flexible with this.
Wow. All great advice. Thank you. Appreciate all of those ideas. And yeah, good luck. Would you like to bring us our final question, Amanda?
I would. So our last question comes from the Art of Ed community. So if you haven't joined yet, what are you waiting for? You don't even need to wait for us to answer your questions. You can just go there and post your burning questions and you will get excellent advice the very same day. We'll stick the link again in the show notes, but you can also go to community.theartofeducation.edu, which I think I might have said wrong in the horror stories. So sorry about that.
You know what? Like they'll find it in the show notes. It's okay.
Find it in the show notes. Right. Okay. So come join us. It's free. There are 3,000 teachers in there already. And it's just like, it has really good vibes.
It's an amazing place to hang out. I really enjoy it.
It's like social media, but only the good parts.
Yes.
So anyway, come hang. Okay. So someone posted a really great question that had to do with project due dates. And I thought it was going to be a good one to talk about here because there's a lot of nuance and things to talk about. So I got a really thoughtful discussion going. And essentially they were asking other people to share how they handled late work. So did people deduct points? How did people handle kids who rushed through to meet a due date versus students who took extra time but put in more effort? And they were kind of wanting to find a middle ground. And this was really great because another community member was like, oh my gosh, I'm having the same issue. And so it can be really helpful to get your question answered, but also just to validate your feelings that like you are not alone. Many people are dealing with the exact same things you're wondering.
Yes.
So I would love to give a little, recap of what people said, and then I want to know your thoughts.
Okay.
All right. So the consensus was most community members had due dates, but then sort of varied on how they accepted late work. So some marked the work missing right away and gave it a 0 if it wasn't in by the due date, but then they let kids turn it in to change their grade at a later date. So they kind of use the 0 to catch kids and parents if they're paying attention, but then the kids had a chance to remedy that. And that is how a lot of the teachers at my own kiddos' schools handle things. And I really appreciate it, because the way that my kiddos' language arts teacher put it is like, what is the goal here? Like, if the goal is learning, then we give them a chance to learn, right? Some teachers took that idea a step further and kind of said they only gave full credit if the student had a reasonable excuse for turning it in late. So, for example, if a kid is goofing off every day and choosing not to work in class, that is not a good excuse for taking 3 extra weeks, right?
Right.
And then some teachers set a soft due date and then sort of waited to set a hard due date until they gauged how most of the class was doing, which I thought was an interesting approach. Like, hey, we're going to try to wrap up by Friday, right? But then if half the class is not anywhere near done, maybe that becomes like a Wednesday. And so you kind of give them like a last chance, which I thought was a good idea. And then, of course, some teachers gave a due date, and if the kids missed, they missed. And the rationale there was that, like, kids are going to be accountable to deadlines in quote unquote real life, and school is a pretty low risk place to learn that.
Yeah.
So, I just appreciated the wide variety of perspectives. It was a really supportive and wonderful conversation. So I think we can put a link right to that discussion.
Okay. Okay. We'll do it. We'll do it. All right. People are going to have nightmares after this episode. They're going to try and lay in bed, and all they hear in their head is just show notes, show notes, show notes.
So like I mentioned, just what I just said in our previous question, I sort of built in that catch-up day, didn't really deal with late work as a perpetual problem as an elementary teacher, but I'm curious to know what you did in your classroom too.
Well, the all of the above approach, as I listened to you talk about those, I did that. I did that. I did that. I would just start off by saying I feel very strongly, I will not rant about this, but I don't think that kids should lose points for turning things in late. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to that question, as I believe what your kid's language arts teacher said, what are we grading? And so I think teachers should ask themselves that, what are you grading? Is it academic and artistic growth, or is it compliance? Are you grading what they're learning, or how good they are at following directions? And I guess when I was a young teacher once upon a time, we were having this debate in a staff meeting, and my principal said, there are consequences in the real world if you don't turn things in on time. And then one of my colleagues just raised their hand and said, what are the consequences for you not returning that email that I sent 3 days ago? And I was just like, oh, yeah. So that was an excellent point. That very much clarified my thinking on that. That this is not as big of a deal. That real world excuse, that doesn't work for me. And so, I always went with pretty flexible deadlines, and I would have kids help me decide when things were going to be turned in, especially my advanced classes, and we'd just talk as a class, hey, I was thinking about having this due on Thursday. Will that work for you? Or say hey, we're going to do end of the week. If you need more time than that, raise your hand. And if 80% of the kids raise their hand, okay, we'll see where we are at the end of the week and talk about next week. And so I think just communicating with them, that's fine. And then you're always going to have some kids who are super slow with things. Yeah. And I always told them, I don't care when you turn it in, I want your best work. I don't care when I get it, but I want it to be your best work. And so that gives them the time to get it to whatever level they think they need without a lot of extra pressure. And I think that sort of puts their mind at ease, and then you don't get kids rushing through things. And, and I would never say everything's due on Tuesday. I would say, hey, we're going to move on after class on Tuesday. Whatever you have left is on your own. And then same strategy of putting things into the grade book. They can turn in a work in progress for partial credit, or I'll put in a 0. And then I just had like a standard email that I would just send home and say, hey, you may see this in the grade book. It's because, this work's not due. They can turn it in at any time. We're moving on in class, but it'll be this in the grade book until they turn it in. And so it's just like literally a form email. I copy and paste every single time, so I don't have to write that, but it's super easy to just send a few emails home for kids who have that partial grade or that 0 in the grade book. But it is a good way to keep track of what is still outstanding, what hasn't been turned in. So anyway, I don't know if I said anything new there beyond like the suggestions that we already had from the community, but I feel like that was a pretty successful approach for me when I was running things. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for that question, Amanda. Appreciate it. Now, before we wrap things up, I would like to try something new. Are you ready to play a game?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay. We're going to play This or That, which I'm sure you're familiar with. I'm going to give you 2 options. You tell me which one you prefer. And we're going to do Thanksgiving Food Edition. Okay. I really like this because you have some takes on food that I think are sometimes just unhinged. And so I would love to just get those out in the world for everyone else to appreciate as well. So are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. First one with This or That, Thanksgiving Foods Edition. Turkey or ham?
Turkey. Ham is not a Thanksgiving food.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. Mac and cheese or green bean casserole?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Green bean casserole because I cannot eat gluten. So
okay, fair.
I'm going to die if I eat the mac and cheese. I also do really love the green beans. I don't know what it is. I just love it.
I feel like just saying I will die if I eat the mac and cheese is probably a good enough answer, but no, that's fair. Okay. Mashed potatoes or sweet potatoes?
Oh my gosh. This is like choosing a favorite child. I'm going mashed potatoes. I like the sweet potatoes, not if they have marshmallows.
Yeah, that's weird.
Like if they have too many eggs, they get to be a texture that I don't appreciate. Like sometimes they have eggs in them.
Yes.
But like mashed potatoes are good even when they're bad.
All right, pumpkin pie or apple pie?
No pies. I hate pie so much. I hate fruit. I hate hot fruits. I hate gelatin. I'm not eating a pie. I will eat a pecan pie if it is almost just nuts. Like none of the goop really.
Okay.
Like imagine like nuts held together by maple syrup in a pie crust. I like that. Or like a French silk pie. But like, do you eat a pie? Do you eat pie?
I don't like pie. No, I will eat a French silk pie.
Yeah.
But other than that,
pie-free podcast.
Hey, pie-free podcast. I love it. All right. Okay, on your pecan pie, if we can convince you to eat one, would you put ice cream or would you put whipped cream?
Oh, I would put whipped cream. The ice cream is like too soggy, and I don't like the mix of temperatures. Okay. I also don't really like a spray whipped cream. Like it has to be real.
Okay.
The spray whipped cream is a little too shiny for my liking.
All right.
I'll eat it, but I don't prefer it.
Okay.
And Cool Whip is a hard pass in case that was a follow-up question.
It was not. I have one final question. I have not talked to you about this before, so the phrasing may be off, but I think I'm right with it. Cranberry sauce for my can or literally anything else?
Literally anything else. Why would you eat cranberry jello? Why would you eat jello? Look, I love my mother-in-law so much, but there is this recipe called pink jello, and it is opaque jello. And it is at every family function. And one time, my older kid, when he was 3, he put it between 2 halves of a hamburger bun, and he ate it, and I almost died. So anyway, no cranberries, no thank you, no fruits. I'll eat anything beside. I'd eat a pumpkin pie over a cranberry anything.
Okay, that's what I thought you were going to say, and so that's why I put literally anything else. But I'm glad that worked out. What's that?
Is that a food you eat?
Oh goodness, no.
No,
Can't,
okay. I didn't think
no.
so, but we've not talked about it, so I just double checking.
Yeah, no, thank you. So that is
like the ridges from the can. I can't.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we will wrap it up there. Amanda, thank you for bringing community questions. Thank you for your vulnerability when it comes to show notes. And thank you for all of your great advice. So it's been fun. Let's do it again next month.
Sounds great. Bye, everybody.
Thanks again to Amanda. It was a very fun episode. If you have questions you would like to send in for our next mailbag, please email Timothy Bogatz at theartofeducation.edu or podcasts at theartofeducation.edu. So much talk today about the show notes. So again, if you can't find them, just go into your podcast app or wherever you're listening, click on the description of the podcast and scroll down. You should be able to see the resources and links. If not, look for a button or a tab that says more or see more, and that will take you right to them. And this week we will link to our Netflix recommendations, info on parent-teacher conferences, one-day lessons, the AOEU community, resources on grading, probably a few other things as well. We talked about a lot today, but we'll link to as many things as possible that we think may be helpful for you. And hopefully those links and those resources can hold you over until we're back next week. Art Ed Radio is produced by the Art of Education University with audio engineering from Michael Crocker. We will be back next week with an episode on advocacy and the art room, and Dr. Teresa Haugen will be my guest. Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to subscribe to Art Ed Radio so we can join you again. And please jump over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. Give us a 5-star rating, maybe even leave us a review. We'll talk to you next week.